Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm Andrew Sabo.
And we are here this week to talk about The Long End Part 3. It's episode 861, and it's the last Green Ring, probably.
Ever?
Probably.
I hope so. I don't know. This is
Buddy, this episode only came out like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago.
And it is so encouraging. Like a beam of sunshine breaking through a rainy cloud, this episode, this three-parter, is. It's so good, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I think it is. I think it is a great note to go out on. I'm like, will they ever touch on this again?
Well, there's definitely some questions. I mean, Buck's character still has a lot of developing to do.
I know.
And Skin, maybe. I mean, there could be a trial between Skin. They love their trial episodes.
It feels like enough time has passed that maybe not, but also,
yeah,
like it does seem like, I don't know. Here's the thing. I think on the opposite end of the Maury situation, which is we feel an obligation to cover every Maury thing, and it kind of bums us out sometimes.
You mean all the time?
All the time. I do mean all the time. More on that at the end of the episode, folks.
Hey.
But I think similarly here, if there is more Green Ring connected stuff that comes out in the future, we will loop back and work that into the schedule.
Yeah, 100%.
In the set, which is also our promise, for the record, for Novacom and Blackguard as well. It just seems unlikely. And I guess Barkley family. For sure, Twilight Zone.
Definitely Twilight Zone. If they
basically, like, if we've covered it and they do like a major, like, Mitch coming back to the show is not enough for me to be like, oh yes, we are counting this.
Yeah, no. Well, that's tangential enough, and it wasn't related to the major plot. Like,
right.
But if the chairman or somebody like that,
for sure,
comes back around, a company by the name of Shman Shramada rears its ugly head.
Right. If there's a big enough tie, we are absolutely
100%.
into doing that. But at this point, have no direct plans.
Unless we write the episodes ourselves.
No.
I don't trust my own ability.
No, I'm not a good writer, and I don't have that kind of time, and I don't know who that would be for.
I believe it's only for us,
which is why we do most things.
Yeah,
but the appeal there is not enough for me.
True, certainly.
The other big I'll do the little bit of cast information, and then we'll do our big diatribe. So the only new member we have for the cast here is Dan Hagen playing Joe Burton. You know Dan Hagen because we can't stop talking about him. Because we can't get away from him in New Odyssey, and in this arc specifically. He is the man who voices Archie Hagler, Jacques Henri, Wilhelm Holstein, and in this episode he voices Joe Burton.
Of course.
The bank teller.
Yeah, not suspicious at all. And he does an excellent job. A man with many voices, as it were. A voice actor.
And we also have in the Dylan called this and is amazing portion of the show, Lee Merriweather coming back as Felicia Larson.
Oh, yeah. That was incredible. And, Dylan called this... I don't know how much we're supposed to, congratulate ourselves, because I feel very accomplished when I guess something that Odyssey is going to do. But it is for 8 to 12-year-olds.
Right.
But it is.
But those 8 to 12-year-olds aren't going to guess it.
That's true. We're really cool to them.
This is, are you smarter than an 8 to 12-year-old listener of Adventures in Odyssey? And the answer is yes.
Sometimes. Not all the time, but...
No, they occasionally know more trivia than we do, but we are right more.
Yeah, we can.
And I'll stand by that.
Pick up on those tropes, those plot beats. Well, Dylan can.
And then the other major thing of note, So this episode, written and directed by Paul McCusker. The final episode, written and directed by Paul McCusker, up till now.
Wow.
He had left the show 5 years prior to these episodes, and then came back to do these episodes, and has since left again.
Well, I'm surprised.
Or 4 years prior. Regardless, it had been a while that
Yeah.
he had been off the show. His previous episode before these was episode 782, which aired October 31st, 2015. He wrote and directed every episode on album 59, Taking the Plunge, which was the album after Ties That Bind, the first 6-episode album that, debuted on the club and then came onto the radio later, like that whole thing. And then he left the show.
There are no winners on that album that I'm looking at.
Yeah, well, I think it's Ties That Bind Aftermath, essentially.
Oh, no wonder.
But anyways, so he left the show at that point, and then came back for this. And he, maybe if we ever decide to do our, hey, pay us money and we'll make extra stuff, we can get into this. But I am very, very interested in this. So what he has been up to since leaving the show is he has done, written and directed a handful of audio dramas for the Augustine Institute.
What is that?
That is a Catholic divination school.
Interesting.
Yeah, we've never actually talked about it on the show, but McCusker converted to Catholicism in 2007. So way back in the show's run. That's still in Paul Herlinger era.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. That's album 2007. That's what, album 45?
Yeah, so somewhere in
there.
there. Right around Eugene Returns era and whatnot.
No Way Out stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
And so yeah,
Surprise Focus lets a Catholic work on their show.
I think it is very interesting, and I think it is such a testament to how much he has done shepherding of this show. So it kind of makes sense that that they let him stay on, and also still a Christian.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I feel like there's a very early, late 90s, early aughts perspective from evangelicals on Catholicism, which is they're not actually Christians.
Yeah, no, they don't believe in Jesus. That's not what all their pictures are about and all their big churches or anything.
Right. Which
wasn't, the whole Peter thing, the rock in which I will build my church. We're just going to forget about that Bible verse.
And there's plenty of interesting discussion about the, about Catholicism, but we're not. That's not what this show is.
No, we're not here to unpack Catholicism.
The thing that is,
what do you think he thinks about Pope Francis, though? Do you think, because that's a very divisive issue amongst Catholics?
Yeah, I don't know. He doesn't seem to have a
I think that
he doesn't have a lot of information that is modern. It is hard. Props to him, but he seems to be a fairly private man who is just happy to
do his job,
live his life, and occasionally direct stuff. He also, oh man, look, once again, if sometime in the future we set up a way for you to pay us money, he wrote a movie that is like a direct to video mess of a Christian movie or Catholic movie, you know what I mean. That is it stars John Rhys Davies, Gimli, / Sala, / the guy who stars in all of those direct to video Christian movies, because that is kind of become his thing.
Somebody's got to do it.
It is
Somebody's gotta collect
wild.
checks.
What is I gotta pull this up now. It's called Beyond the Mask. It came out in 2015. Yeah, and that's a thing he made.
Wow, and that came
wrote.
out in 2015.
Correct. So that came out before these episodes. That was basically like right after he left the show. He did this movie called Beyond the Mask.
Oh, it's a period piece.
It is a period piece.
It is the proud owner of a 29% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah. I can't imagine it is an enjoyable watch, but I think we could have fun with it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely.
So
well, and if McCusker did it, I mean,
right?
Yeah.
It just feels like, hey, we've got like an easy in here, which is like, hey, you know,
I like plenty of the other stuff he's done.
Right? Yeah, and not all of it, but yeah, could be fun.
But honestly, most of it. Like I'm scrolling through the episodes that he's written, and you know, I've made my feelings on the ties that bind abundantly clear. But other than that, they're pretty much all winners.
Yeah.
Like a solid, at least 85% success rate for Paul McCusker.
Yeah. I mean, what are his blemishes? Like Ties That Bind and Castles and Cauldrons? Like, are those the things that we're going to take issue with here?
I mean, he did
Truth Chronicles stuff,
something.
maybe. 60 something. Yeah, it's not like. Look, it's not like he's batting 100 here, but
no. I
do love it. I like that. So with the Augustine Institute, he's done a Robin Hood adaptation, a movie called, or not a movie, an audio drama called The Trials of St. Patrick.
Ooh.
Which I think that one specifically is interesting because he previously did
the St. Patrick
two-parter, which I'm like, that would be a fun, like, hey, let's cover all of these.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who knows what our future holds? Will I subscribe to the niche Catholic streaming service that these, audio dramas exist on? Maybe.
There may have been a time in my life where I thought that I was above that. This podcast has proven otherwise.
Yeah. But anyways, so that's the high level. We just got to talk a little bit about McCusker because this is where he leaves it, and who knows, he could come back. Mm-hmm. It's only been 2-3 years since he was on since he did these, and there was a 5-year break, 4 or 5 year break prior to that. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. But
I mean, if he comes back, he's coming back swinging because it seems to be that's the only way. Like the only thing he knows how to do post album 50 is just big arcs with lots of character development and
and this feels like this is kind of his child, and there's so much that that I think he gets right in these episodes.
My gosh, yeah. No, it's I have very good things to say about The Long End Part 3 and Part 1 and 2 as far as where it fits in the tier of Odyssey, like the quality. Yeah. This is a tier, S tier episode in my mind.
You want me to roll the promo and then we just get into it, Andrew?
Oh yeah, more than anything, let's just dive right in.
On the next adventure in Odyssey, the past and future of Buck Oliver collide in a dramatic conclusion.
I know what Skint is after.
I must admit, this entire situation makes me nervous, Buck.
Me too.
I'm taking him back. He didn't belong here anyway.
Get out of here or I'll call the police.
Just call it the last scene in The Long End.
You won't want to miss the next adventure in Odyssey.
Oh boy.
You won't want to miss the next episode, Andrew.
I mean, after this one, maybe, but
yeah, no. I have no context at all for In the Sun-Scorched Land Part 1. Which is the next episode. But this one, I don't want to miss.
I'm certainly glad I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this episode kicks off with Skint and 2-Bits formulating their plan.
Yeah. So this is the thing. And maybe it's just an inconsistency in my notes. Is he always 2-Bits or is he sometimes 2-Bit? Is there always an S there? Does everyone say it with an S? Because some people for sure do.
2-Bit Luker, I think.
But he gets
it's definitely both.
Okay.
I feel like Jason calls him 2-Bit. Or
maybe
like one of the agents calls him 2-Bit, and then but I think Skint always calls him 2-Bits.
Yeah, I think of him as 2-Bit, but But
2 bits in my heart.
Right. 2-bit in my heart. Because
2-bit,
if he
but
was
you're
2
not.
bits, that would be encroaching on our territory of this podcast just being 2 bits.
So that's all we got. We're 150 episodes in.
And we've got 2 bits.
Ooh. Ooh. I'm perspiring.
It's an audio podcast.
Yep.
Can you hear the sweat on his brow?
It's misting.
Oof. So yeah, the Skin's telling 2-bit that he doesn't think that Buck or the police know what he's after, based on his previous conversation with Buck. And he's like, all right, 2-bit, like, I'm sending you back in. You're gonna go to Triple J Antiques, and you're gonna get arrested.
Yeah, because he loves getting people arrested. I mean, it's a pretty...
It's one of his 2 bits.
What's the other one? Running away? Leaving? Getting people arrested and leaving? He's like an inverse cop.
I don't know. Is there anything else to say about this scene? It's so brief.
No, it's very brief. And this is like I guess more of a general note. For some reason, this like aftermath stuff feels very Better Call Saul to me. I don't know.
Okay.
Even though Better Call Saul is a prequel to Breaking Bad, as far as like the world building and like these tangential characters coming in and fleshing out this like very pre-existing, but it's also, coming out after the fact.
Right.
Yeah. Just I'm watching through Better Call Saul, if you cannot tell.
Yeah.
So
Great show.
Season 4, don't spoil it. Season 6 is coming out
Maybe.
now, soon. Maybe. I don't know.
I think it's spring.
I hope
Could
so.
be wrong. It doesn't matter.
That's for our second podcast.
Better Call Paul, in which we cover him after our conversion.
Ooh, we make a radio drama about him becoming a Christian after the events of Breaking Bad. Perfect. He's working in Nebraska. He's in the Bible Belt. We can make it happen.
Oh, we redo a Road to Damascus scene. He gets blinded.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's the Cinnabon icing. He's like looking into it. It just he passes out. Sees God. Why are you persecuting me? Stop selling burner phones to criminals. He woke up and he knew.
Stop undercutting America's legal system.
Yeah.
This is the thing that I, your God, care about.
Yes.
Most of all.
Not the meth. None of that.
No. That guy got his comeuppance.
Yeah, he did. I was sure I took care of that one. Did you see that series finale?
Spoilers. Is that the promo clip for this episode, Andrew?
I think it might be. Launching our Better Call Paul spin-off podcast. Woo. That and 2-bit. I mean, we're doing it.
So yeah, we then go to a scene with Jason where he's with Monty, and 2-bit's walking up to the door, and he goes, "Oh, hide in the back, Monty. They're like Skin's trying to bait us. Let's just." And Monty's like, "All right, well, let's lean into it."
Yeah, he's like, so he goes and hides in the back, and then 2-bits comes in and gives him more money than the chest is worth for the chest.
$2,000.
Well, no, so it's $1,000 for the chest and another $1,000 to keep him from calling the police.
Right.
I never knew a cop that couldn't be bought.
He's so
Just takes his money. Jason is so cool. Like,
oh, it's so funny.
you can hear his eye rolls.
He drops into the stiletto voice for a portion, and it just makes me so happy. I'm like, Townsend Coleman, you're killing it.
He's
like,
so good. He's so
I just
good.
love that you.
Like, he plays like this role of just the retired, exhausted spy agent that has this long past so well. So when, Two Bits comes in and starts talking to him, like, yeah. That whole bit last episode where he didn't remember how to be watched or whatever, complete nonsense.
Yeah.
He just kills it here. It's amazing voice acting. It's so exciting because you hear it and then you don't know, like, oh my gosh, how is Two Bits going to respond to him, like, confessing and blowing his cover, and he's like, oh yeah, I just own this antique shop, which is true.
Yeah.
Like, Jason just tells this criminal exactly what he's up to.
Uh-huh. And Two Bits is so dumb. He just rolls with it.
Yep.
Like, he's just like, oh yeah, I've never met a cop who couldn't be bought. Here, take these $2,000.
Everything's
Jason's
going
like, oh,
exactly
thanks.
as planned.
Yeah. You feel that, like, Two Bit feeling like he's so clever, which is really funny. And then Monty, sends his agents out to chase him.
Yeah, he's like, you want to chase? Give him a chase. Make a show of it, he says.
Yeah.
Over the phone to his colleagues.
Right.
And Monty knows what Skint is after, which is revealed in this scene. Which obviously was established in the first scene as to, like, they don't know. Just kidding. I do know, which is so cool. And hearing Monty say that was just like, oh.
Yeah. He talked to Eugene, and Eugene told him about the will. The thing that's weird is Skint talks about... I guess he doesn't. Skint doesn't know about or Buck didn't tell Skint about the will, just about the painting. So when he says, like, when he says he doesn't know what he's after, I guess he doesn't know, or he doesn't know that Buck knows what he's after. Which, we'll get into it as we plunge forward. We then jump to a scene with Eugene and Katrina and Buck explains the name of this 3-parter.
Yep.
In excruciating detail.
You know what a long end is? It's an end that's long. You gotta do it, and it takes a long time, actually.
Right. As opposed to most cons that are short and then continue, this one is long and then ends.
Yep. A short con, small yield, continuous. This is long con. Yeah. This is the low and slow baking method.
And then we find out that Buck has a trust fund set up by his parents, and that's where
the money is.
Right.
That's where the valuables are.
Probably what Skint's after.
It would appear so.
And then speak of the devil, and he comes running.
Yeah, Skint just busts in.
Yep.
And duct tapes Eugene and Katrina to the chair.
Yeah.
And Eugene protests, which is good. And then, like, he's basically, Buck is going along with it, which is, upon my first listen, was kind of confusing. Only in the sense of, like, I don't know what angle he is going to play this or what's going to happen with this.
Yep.
If he was actually going along with Skint and he was going to change his mind later, or as what is revealed now, that he pretty much had a plan all along.
Right. Well, because my big note in this scene is I was like, oh, Buck didn't actually loop in Eugene and Katrina on what's going on.
Yeah.
That really bums me out. And then you find, like, oh no, he did. Eugene and Katrina are just playing a part. Like, he's conning the con artist, but they have to do it in a way that's a reveal for us, the audience. And it's not my favorite.
No.
Like, I will say, like, this, after the high of last episode and really loving the first one, this one was a bit of a letdown for me, where I was just like, some of the plotting kind of, like, I can start to see the cracks in it in ways that I don't love. Yeah, but I like what they're going for.
I like what the characters are and what the characters do.
For sure.
The actions don't always line up and the logistics are as shoddy as ever. But,
yeah. Right. Well, and it's just right. It's this thing too where it's like, what? Like, Buck is complying to some pretty extreme stuff on first listen, and you're like, what does Skint have over him? Like, is this truly just a, like, oh, you are a parental figure? it's like, why isn't he holding a gun?
Yeah.
Like, it's just the, like, Skint has Buck, like, duct tape Eugene and Katrina to chairs.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that shouldn't be, like, there should be a threat involved to get him to comply there, even if he, like, even if he's not conning, or, like, especially if he's not conning, I don't believe that the Buck we know would give in that easily.
Yeah, certainly not. Well, and he didn't do that in the Green Ring at all either. So there is kind of the understanding that if that were to be true and for that to happen, like, Buck is not only going back to this life, he's worse than he was before.
Right.
So it kind of stretches it a little thin.
Right, which is, once again, as they're trying to, like, pull one over on us, the audience, is a thing that gets threaded throughout this episode of, like, Buck's, like, off the deep end.
Yeah.
But
Eugene is, like, fighting for him, and he gets duct tape while he's, like, protesting, which
yeah.
I love that for Eugene.
Especially when, in retrospect, it was all an act.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Like, I love that he's like, look, I know I don't have to, but I'm going to.
No matter where you go, and then he duct tapes him, and Skin says, I'm getting a sense of deja vu, because did Eugene get duct taped in the Green Ring?
No, Katrina did.
Yeah. She got
Katrina got duct taped to
carnival.
the chair. I'm sure Eugene has been duct taped in the past.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, did he get... He was duct taped in the J&J Antiques.
Yeah, the jewelry store scam.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was
Jewelry store. That's a enunciation issue I have. Anyway. Buck explains to Skint everything that he's figured out in the previous 2 episodes regarding the painting and the will and all of that. And of course Skint is like, oh, I was looking at it all this time and I never guessed it. And it's kind of a sweet moment because, it shows that Buck is intelligent and kind of did manage to pull this over on Skint.
Yeah, it's just like
it feels a lot of like telling him what you already told him as far as the show is concerned.
Yeah, but it's also like he explains the will, which is like I don't understand his motivations in what, like, in either case. Because it's like, why is he keeping this from him? Mm-hmm. Or like, why isn't he keeping this from him? Oh, he's playing him. But then why? Like, I guess we'll just get into this now. My biggest gripe with the reason Buck would con Skint is to set Skint up for, like, an easy arrest where he had something that he could, like, for sure be put away for. Mm-hmm. But that's not what we get in this episode.
No.
Like, there's no... They could have written, right now in this scene, Monty walking in and arresting Skin, and it would have and it would have made just as much sense as when it happens later.
Yeah.
And so that's my frustration, where it's like, if you're going to, like, work out this whole, like, double cross whatever, there should be, like, some nail in the coffin thing that you get Skint on to justify why you have to go through all this.
Yeah.
Because if the problem is literally just, like, he's slippery and it's hard to track him down and, like, get a hold of him, it's like, you probably could have worked out something less convoluted.
Well, definitely, and considering the information that we as the listeners have at this point in the episode, where we know that both Monty and Jason are onto him, like, this is going to take effect. He is going to get brought down.
Right. That takes so long to pay off.
Yeah.
The whole, like, Monty and Jason being like, we're ahead of the ball on this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just like, I was just frustrated with why is Buck responding in this way, where it felt like a character turn, and I realized that's what they're going for, because both they want to put the audience on edge, and they want to set up that, like, Buck is playing Skin, and I can appreciate that from a really high level, but it just doesn't work for me in the way that it plays out, because I don't think it, like, quite lines up all the way.
No, yeah, they definitely kind of do the Odyssey thing where they're doing maybe a little bit too much. They could have kept it a little bit more trim, or at least made it more direct. In that, like, when you have a 3-parter and you've got to stretch out a certain amount of plot over a certain amount of time, I don't know whether they had a bunch of material that got cut and that was left on the threshing room floor, and that's what we have, we just are left with that, or if it was the other way around, where they had X amount of plot points and they had an hour of audio to fill out, and, they needed to make it take a little bit longer before Skint got caught.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll never know quite what it looks like behind the scenes. But...
And the scene I just want to mention, the scene ends with kind of Skint basically saying that Buck didn't belong here anyway, and he's kidnapping him and taking him home.
Yep.
Which is, I mean, as somebody who likes the voice of Skint, is kind of like nice and cool and whatever. And it's interesting to hear him say that, at least upon re-listen. Especially knowing the comeuppance that are about to come up.
Amen. So yeah, we then get some like wild music for that interlude. Mm-hmm. And then we jump to Skint kind of laying everything out. And he's like, 2-Bit is going to go there. The cops are currently chasing him. He's going to wind up at Eugene and Katrina's house. He's going to take them hostage.
Yep.
And then Skint's whole reason for this whole thing. So I guess part of it that is there as an undertone, which I do appreciate and does make this feel more valid, is that Skint does care for Buck.
Yeah.
And so this is like personal to him. Mm-hmm. The part that's harder is he is coming at this because he wants the money in Buck's trust fund so that he can like seal the deal on this like perfect con he's been doing.
Yeah.
And then he'll be out. And I'm just like, that it feels like there's an easier way to write this.
Than
where
the
it's
con
like,
man trying to con the con man.
Well, it just
they got saved by a con man.
It feels like the way that I think you would like, just my like off the top of my head way to improve this episode is there is something in the lockbox from his personal ties to Buck's parents that he specifically needs in order to like make whatever he's doing fit. Maybe there's incriminating evidence in there that's like, hey, here's Skint's, actual name or whatever. Or
maybe they've got a secret ranch in Canada or something he can run away and hide out at.
Right. Like maybe if it wasn't just money, because we set up in the in like the prequel to these episodes, that whole like when he first visits Felicia Larson, and we set up that like Skint was calling was always like around trying to find this will.
Yeah.
And the reason now just seems like is just because he wanted money.
Yeah, he wanted money so he could get out. But no,
he's been doing it for years. So it's just like, oh, he's always been trying to get like the money from Buck's parents. And it's like, I feel like this would just work better if there was something from their shared history that made him want this.
Yeah, well, an incriminating evidence I think is an excellent option for that, because he's got a...
Incriminating evidence is great, but also just like the key to a safe. Yeah. Or like literally a piece of paper that like has like
GPS coordinates.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it feels like there's just a more compelling thing. And let's play this out. So there's a piece of incriminating evidence, and he's like, I have to destroy this piece of evidence before I can actually retire, because I'll never be able to rest easy knowing that this piece is out there. Yeah. And then they capture him, pull out that piece of evidence. Maybe it's one of those situations where like in order to get to the evidence, you need something from Skint. Like Buck can't get there on his own.
Yeah.
There's some piece that Skint fills. You get Skint. You get that piece of incriminating evidence. Then you bust him, and you've got the incriminating evidence to put him away forever.
Perfect.
Like, it just feels like there is it feels like money is both like the easiest and least logical thing for him to be after in this.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, oh, it just feels like very like
Of course.
first draft. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah, he wants money. And it's like, but you've been building this up for so long that there's like
All this personal ties.
right, and all these personal ties, and like Felicia reveals at the end of the episode to Buck that like his mom put all of those things in place to keep stuff from Skint.
Yeah, and
And
from
it's
his
like-
dad and from everybody.
Right, and
It
it's
was
like, oh, the
for
stuff
him.
that she was trying to keep was money, which, like, sure, Skint would have taken the money and, like, used it, and then
Yeah.
Buck wouldn't have had it, I guess. But he just doesn't feel nearly as...
It could have been just like...
It just feels like, oh...
It could have been punctuated better.
Right.
With a
there's,
little bit more
There's something...
reason.
There's a, like, you know, third or fourth draft here that would make more sense and be more satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's... Yeah. Anyways, that's my, like, big take on this episode that was just... that was just...
No, for sure.
Slightly annoying to me.
Well, no, it is, I mean, considering how Skint, like, you know, the long end, basically, the climax is Skint getting put away, and, you know, that's the climax, and it is kind of yada yada to get there. I mean, you have, okay, so he goes to the bank, and then goes to the bank that's really far away, and he's created this diversion, and then, you know, he turns out he gets tricked and he gets trapped at the bank and gets arrested. Like,
yeah,
it didn't take a ton more just to
it just
solidify.
feels like a couple things could have
Yeah.
been. It feels like the bones are there for the perfect finale, and just
Yeah.
like a couple like missteps happened, and now it just like
just-
doesn't quite work.
Yeah, kind of like my left wrist. I mean, I did have the surgery, but the range of motion isn't there yet. The bones are there.
So right, so the whole thing. Yeah, he then reveals like, it's all part of this big scheme I have to get away from it. And Two-Bit is going to get arrested, and he doesn't know the plan because I played him too. Because like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And then Buck does get the chance. I guess the one advantage to Buck and Skint having this interaction is that Buck gets a little bit of info on his background.
Yeah.
The problem is that at the end of the episode, we find out Felicia Larson's alive and in, you know, protective custody and can tell him all this and more.
Yep.
And is not a threat to him.
We didn't need that conversation with Skint in the car.
No.
It could have just happened with Felicia at the end.
But Buck's mom had cancer and was trying to keep that from Buck.
Mm-hmm.
His dad died in a car crash. Skint has always looked after Buck because of how much he loved his mom.
Mm-hmm.
They did like a reverse Snape.
Yeah, that was exactly why I have that in my notes as well. I was like,
yep.
Snape?
Yeah, I was like, oh wait, we're giving Skint the Snape arc.
Okay. Interesting. And Snape goes to jail. Right. I mean, I guess he just died.
No, but it's the reverse Snape because
Yeah.
Snape hates Harry's mom or hates Harry because he loved his mom.
Yeah.
And then it winds up being a good guy. And this is Skint loves Buck because he loved his mom and he's a bad guy.
Yeah, winds up being a bad guy. Exactly. The reverse Snape is I think the scientific term for that trope.
Yeah, I agree. That's what they have it in the textbooks as.
That's what the official guides are for.
Yeah. The thing that is, a nice moment here or whatever is Buck talks about, you know, how hard it was to leave Skint.
Mm-hmm.
And to change into this way of life.
It says it's the
And I'm
hardest
like-
thing he's ever done.
And I appreciate that and believe his sincerity in that. And I feel like we have seen that through his arc.
Mm-hmm.
And it rings true. And then he goes on this little tirade about how he's like stolen all this information and can bring them all down, including and underlining like Jules' dad's credit card.
The alcoholic?
Which is like...
You don't want to steal money from an alcoholic. They don't have any money.
Right, well, it's like... Sure, and also it's like... Stealing a credit card is like such a, like, trivial way. It's like... you could steal anybody's credit card and do the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like that doesn't feel like that's a good con.
That's a really excellent sell that I'm
And,
still
like,
in the game
right,
and I'm
and-
on your side.
Yeah,
'cause
yeah,
I've
and
been
the-
collecting all this information, and then
and Skin also doesn't really buy it. And it's just one of those things where, as an audience, you're going, is this really horribly written, or is there something bigger at play? And the answer is there's something bigger at play, but it is...
also badly written.
Well, yeah, I think the badly written is like, Buck is not able to play this role well and sell it, which I think is actually good writing and good performance, but it just... I wish it was done in a way that was less I wish it was done in a way that was a little bit more clear what was going on. I wish they would telegraph things a little bit. I wish this episode wasn't so caught up in the twist of, oh no, Buck was actually playing Skin.
Yeah.
Because I think it makes it a worse Buck episode because we have to view it through that lens, and I don't think it's particularly artfully done.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
I
and
don't
is that like do you think that they had to take that angle so they could do the whole kind of like Buck was on a bad path at the end, and then like or is that, you know, is the chicken or the egg situation? Like, did they shoehorn the episode to meet the moral that happens at the end? Because initially our prediction was he becomes a Christian this episode.
Right.
Which that didn't happen.
It didn't, but we do get an altar call in Chris's outro.
Oh, exactly. Which is perfect. Very on brand.
Well, and also just weird.
Yes, yes.
It just feels out of place.
I'm not supporting that.
No, well, I'm not like against that as a concept. It just doesn't feel like this is the time or place.
Yeah,
I don't know, maybe that was
exactly.
part of McCusker coming back, where he was like, I will only come back to an episode if we get to work in an altar call. This is my this is my like,
weird ass.
Right, yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna
My
say.
yellow teddy bears.
My green M&Ms, like
Yep.
this is the weird ask.
Yeah. That's good.
So yeah,
Oh, wait, before we move on, the sound engineering of the car ride is incredible. The turn signal sounds amazing.
oh yeah. I feel like this is very much like the truck sounds they had from Green Ring being reused,
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
which they like went overboard on that, and I do love it.
Did and then so the next scene is them basically arriving at the Harlanville National Bank.
Right. Which has the Fleur de Lily on.
Perfect.
Yep. Which is in part of the painting.
Yeah. But then we get a hands-free phone call, which is, if he's at the bank, why is he using the hands-free?
No, they're still in the car, I think.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
But
To 2 bits, which I thought was fun and cool and
Yes.
different for Odyssey to
Yeah.
recognize technology in that way.
look at that. Crazy. And there's this was just 2 bits is like does this whole thing where he's like, I'm holding them hostage, and it's and Buck's like, can you put them on? And he's like, no.
Yeah. Nope. I took off Katrina's duct tape, but Eugene was too annoying.
Yeah. Which is funny.
Haha.
And this was just where I was like, what are Jason and Monty up to? Why do we not know what's going on here? This is weird. But then then we go into the bank. Buck provides identification, which includes a driver's license.
I'm glad you made note of that as well. It means he's at least 16.
Yep.
Ooh.
Yep. The man is licensed.
Chalk Squad. Are 16-year-olds old enough to date? What do you think? I don't know. I mean, I dated when I was 16. I still don't know if that was
way before.
Yeah. I dated when I was 14. I don't know if that was a good idea, but thinking about Jules and Buck.
I feel like logistically dating makes sense once you can drive.
Yeah, it definitely makes a lot more sense than dating before you can drive.
Yep.
Those are just best friends that you make out with.
Words to live by. So it comes out that there's the safe deposit box has there is like, along with Buck's trust is a safe deposit box. They like the bank teller, Dan Hagler, walks them to it. And I'm sorry, did I?
Dan Hagler.
I just combined Archie
Hagler
Hagler
and
and Dan Hagen.
That's a wonderful spirit child with so many accents.
And so he walks them to the thing, and then Buck is like, I am afraid of like tight spaces. You go ahead, Skint. And
This
Skint's
isn't
like,
right.
there's a gate here. That's weird. And he's like, well, it's for security. And so Skint walks in, and they close the gate and are like, we gotcha.
The end. Which is so...
It's
feels
just like,
so anticlimactic
Yes.
for this
It's like
this
Skint-
slippery worm
and there's
who
this
escapes
whole-
the law for
Right.
literally like probably 30 or 40 years at this point. And he just gets tricked into walking under the gate like, ooh,
Right. And
look
yeah.
at this bait-looking bait. Let me
Right.
just take that.
Well, you see, it's spring-loaded.
Yeah.
So if we were running from here and I pull it here, it's gonna land over that. Nope, it just goes straight down.
It just goes straight down. A little fantastic Mr.
I'm
Fox
pregnant.
reference. I'm pregnant. Honey, that's great news.
Best
I don't have
movie.
enough. Yeah, it might be.
So they then
Move over, Citizen Kane.
look. I'll go on record on saying I like that movie more.
Oh, 100%. I like that movie more than like most critically acclaimed good movies.
Look, we'll plug it again at the end, but I feel like Chalk Squad. If you haven't seen
Fantastic Mr. Fox.
yes, the Wes Anderson film, watch it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a clean PG.
Loaded cast, hilarious.
Yep.
Great character development.
I feel like it was
No
big
swearing?
in my youth group.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, so I feel like it's got good
It's a safe-
good bones there. Anyways,
Excellent bones.
so there's this whole then Buck does this little like, the thing that was always gonna get you, Skin, is that like you like
Your weaknesses is other people's
people's weaknesses.
Your weaknesses is exploiting other people. What?
Right.
That's your answer?
And he exploited Buck by going in alone. Like it was the scene
I'll
does not
feel bad
make
for
sense
this
logistically.
only for a moment.
I mean,
Wink.
yeah.
End scene.
Right. Monty pops out for a bit, and then I am just like, well done, Buck, my boy.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
yeah.
like I am just like, I'm glad that that he came through in this, and it's nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get kind of the summation stuff where it's like, oh, Two Bits was at the police station when he made those calls. Eugene and Katrina were in on the whole ruse.
Mm-hmm.
Felicia Larson's in witness protection. And it's just like, oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's great. And then Buck, in the next scene, gets to meet Felicia Larson.
Again, but yeah, the bit, and just shouts out to Lee Merriweather for really playing this well. But the bit where like while the detective is in the room, well, I guess
acts
it's Monty,
dumb.
but like while
Yeah.
Monty's in the room, she acts like this like little old lady who like couldn't do anything, and then as soon as
Where's the mute button? Let me tell you about all this secret money.
I do love it. I'm also like, Felicia, you gotta know there's no way that room's not bugged, right?
Yeah,
but
bugs. Yeah. There is
But-
one bug per lamp in that in
Yeah.
those rooms.
it is just it's nice. And she
You can call me Mama.
yeah.
Which is so cute.
That's funny.
Makes my heart melt.
Yeah.
Well, because like Buck doesn't have a mom.
I know. And her nickname was Mama. She's gonna send Buck a picture of his mom, which is really great.
Yeah.
And
She loved his mom a lot too.
Yeah.
Which is really sweet in how that's juxtaposed against kind of Skin and how they both love Buck's mom and how it came out in different ways because of their own selfish intents.
yeah, and it just like, even though they're both criminals, it does like underline like, hey, Buck's mom was pretty cool. Like,
Yeah.
people liked her. She
And she was looking out for her kid. She wasn't like her dad who would have squandered all his money. Like,
Yep.
you get the idea that she was a good con artist, but also a like above average human.
Yeah. And so the weird thing here is though all those things were hidden from Skin, like the whole like mystery they had to unravel was to keep it from Skin, not from Buck. Felicia knew all the answers and was going to tell him when he came of age. And I don't understand why her being put into witness protection here, she was unable to do that. Like, I understand. Like, it is weird that it's like she mailed off these things. Maybe she mailed them off hoping that... But she knew that Skint was coming after her because they were using her as bait. Like, that was the whole thing, was like, we're doing this to draw Skint out. So it's like, I don't know why she sent him on the goose chase. Because, like, if she knew, like, the point was, like, oh, like, you know, I'm... you know, in witness protection so that we can, like, get Skint and whatever, maybe just, like, don't do anything with the mirror and the picture, or, like, it was just one of those things where it's like, this one I don't feel like I have as clear a way to revise it that works, but it did just strike me as, like, it made this, like, a little weirdly, like, it's as weirdly overcomplicated and underwritten.
Which I feel like Odyssey does, and maybe it's a McCusker thing, I don't know, at like the end of like really long arcs and stuff like that, where like, oh, we're tying all these loose ends up, and by tying all these loose ends up, I mean just, you know, mashing a bunch of rope in until they get tangled up in knots and chucking it in the
I don't know that it's a McCusker thing. I think the other time we've talked about it with this level is part 3 of Rydell Revelations, which I feel like did a very similar thing. Phil Lawler episode. We obviously like those episodes way less than these, but had a similar thing where it was just like, oh, the like way you are wrapping this up is somehow feels like you are doing too much like way more effort than is needed, and giving us an unsatisfying answer as a result.
All for it to not be the last scene in the episode too.
Right, because we have to, I mean, like, I'm glad that we get a Eugene Katrina Buck moment. That is nice. We go out of this scene on Felicia telling Buck stories of his family. But the next scene has to exist so that we have an album artwork.
Very important.
The thing I would like to draw attention to that makes zero sense, though, is Skint is lurking in the bushes in the album artwork.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he is. That,
And so I don't understand.
Yeah, like, that might have been a bit of an oversight.
It's just, and it's not, look, there are plenty of examples in Odyssey of the album artworks not being a literal interpretation of what occurred, but it is just bizarre.
Well, because otherwise this is such a clear representation. Also, Buck does not look 16 in that album artwork.
Dude, he's got a leather jacket. He's got to be 16. You can't wear one of those if you're less than 16.
I've got some bad news for myself in middle school then, goodness. Or at least some of my friends. Jacob used to wear a leather jacket all the time.
That's true.
He's a leather jacket fiend.
So yeah, the Buck reveals that there was in the safety deposit box, there was a rocket, which will...
Apparently quite a sizable one if we're going by the album artwork.
Right. And they've got to complete the last piece of the picture, which was setting off the rocket, which is like a fun bow tie, whatever, on the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think it's weird to be setting off like a big old fireworks rocket during the daytime. I also think it's weird if Felicia was supposed to reveal all this to Buck and not make him go through the scavenger hunt, to then one of the pieces to the scavenger hunt be in the safety deposit box. I don't know. It just feels like we're being too clever here.
No, it definitely feels a bit overdone.
But the way more meaningful thing is that he got his father's high school ring.
Yeah, and it was the one thing he didn't steal.
Yep. And I love that.
There's a lot of talk this episode about, like, how do you know what the truth is when you believe so many lies? And that's a very real thing, and it's very difficult. And I'm glad to see the show talking about it.
Yeah. Also, like, I look. I know it's not necessarily the right way to go about it, but there is part of me where I'm like, Buck should propose with the class ring.
100%. No,
Where I'm like, look, it's not an engagement ring. It wouldn't make sense as an engagement ring, but
could be a promise ring though.
But the
I mean,
dang it, Andrew, come on. We can't go there.
Evangelicals love their promise rings.
They really do.
They're so into them. I mean, I've never bought a promise ring, not once, not twice, not 3 times. A lady.
Andrew and I are different people.
We are. There's a multitude of viewpoints represented by the Wadfam Talk Pod. That is for sure.
But yeah, I'm just like, oh, well, now you own a ring that is very important to you and have a great relationship with another character on the show, and maybe many moons in the future, this can be a thing that occurs.
I would love.
Just planting my flag now.
Yep. Connie becomes a counselor. Jules gets in a relationship with Buck. We get a nice little promise ring scene. They can even sneak off and do some mischief in Buck's car. Nothing sexual, certainly, but just mischief, like forking lawns, shenanigans that only Midwestern high schoolers get into.
Right, of course.
Mostly involving practical jokes. Saran wrapping toilets. Playing inappropriate music on the speakers in department stores. That sort of thing.
Speaking from experience, Andrew.
No.
And so, yeah, that's where we go out.
That's it.
That's the episode. It's a good
long
one.
end.
It is a long end. I think my notes stand of like, it's a little convoluted at times that are frustrating. But I like, and I wish this episode stuck the landing a little bit better. But I like all of these relationship dynamics. I wish they had maybe put a little bit better tied up because the whole thing at the beginning of this 3-part is Dale wanting to interview Buck.
Yeah.
And I wish that plan had been and I wish that plan had been landed a bit. Like, that would be nice. Or just Buck more acknowledging, like, the places I came from aren't great, but, like, I'm on the right track now, which is, like, definitely the point that they're making, but I weirdly wish it was a little bit more heavy-handed.
No, yeah. I mean,
I wish they just, like, underlined the themes a little bit more.
Yeah, they're undermined. Yeah, they're heavy-handed with plenty of other stuff, so they certainly could do
right. It just feels like there's like maybe a slight missed opportunity here. Overall, like this is not an episode that is so frustrating that it undoes the previous 2 by any means. Like, I think the previous 2 are still like, I think as a 3-parter this exists in a very good place. Mm-hmm. This is definitely the episode of the 3-parter I like the least, and I have some frustrations with it, but not to the extent that it makes me bummed out.
Yeah, no, disappointed as to what could have been. No, it's not optimal. I wouldn't pretend that it's perfect.
It's no ending to the labyrinth.
No, certainly. No, that was great. That was chef's kiss.
Right, but it is still like a fun, satisfying, interesting arc with great characters pulling all throughout like the world of Odyssey in a way that makes me very happy.
Yeah, new Odyssey pulling from a plot that started 7 years ago, wrapping it up in this way, which is, it's self-indulgent. It sounds great, and they do a good job, and like, I think that this episode was well received for a reason. It's got 95% on the wiki. Obviously, as we mentioned, it's an Avery Award winner. Like, people like this, and granted, they only had 24 episodes to choose from that year.
Sure,
and this took up 3 of them.
Sure,
but
yeah, it's just I'm just happy that we got to cover these, and I'm happy that.
I'm glad that we listened to it, because this is Odyssey that came out since we started this show.
Yeah, it is, and I just feel like the Green Ring arc as a whole, I still am comfortable saying that, like, I like Novacom best, Blackguard
second,
Green Ring.
Yeah.
But they all deserve that amount of praise.
Yeah.
Like, they all deserve to be counted in the, like, really great long Odyssey arcs that, in just, like, a way that feels great.
Yeah, which is exciting and refreshing in a way that, like, I had no clue. Like I said, before we listened to this podcast, I had listened to the Green Ring Conspiracy, loved it. I knew that there was more Green Ring stuff to come out, but I had very, very little optimism about any new Odyssey, and I kind of figured they would just drive it into the ground and it would be bad.
Yeah.
For this episode, I thought about doing like a Twilight joke in the beginning where it was like, what if we stopped covering Odyssey after we finished the Novacom series and we just never found out that, like, some new Odyssey is okay?
Hey, yeah, I mean, it would be interesting.
Yeah, no. I do you have anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. I think I've kind of said my piece.
Me too.
Green Ring is just like, it's a solid whatever we covered, 24 episode saga, and it deserves to be in the conversation. And if they ever decide to broach it again, I look forward to that. Like, that's not a thing that scares me.
Is it the Kobe Bryant of Odyssey? He's like, it's not like considered the GOAT, but it's not in the debate as the GOAT, but it's definitely up there and it's very highly respected. Yeah. There's a sports metaphor that I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast loves.
I mean, there you go. With all that being said, we have come to the end of an arc. We are going into guest season.
We love guest season.
So from now till the end of the year, probably will all be guest episodes. We might do a Dylan's Choice or an Andrew's Choice in there, that sort of thing. But we're really riding out. Really riding out on having fun people on. Starting with next week, we are going to be covering The Team with a special guest. It's very exciting.
Very exciting.
I'm going to...
Can we tell them it's a returning guest?
Returning guest. We are covering it with a returning guest. I am looking forward to recording that episode and not looking forward to listening to The Team.
Oh, no, certainly not. No. Burn it to the ground. No, none of it. But I'm excited to talk about it with you and guest.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this as it, like the day it comes out or the week it comes out, on that Saturday is when The Team airs on the radio. Or on this coming Saturday, in like 4 days from now, however days work, is when The Team airs on the radio. And on obviously the internet. So if you are not a club member and would like to listen to it, that is an option.
A perfect jumping
in a couple days. And then after that, we'll be back next week to talk about episode 922, The Team. Bye guys.
WadFam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lidditz Podcast Co-op. Follow the podcast at WadFamChalkPod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. The Long End Part 3 was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Acebo, and edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us again next time for more of the WadFam Chalk Pod.